All right. You know, I am just so blessed to be the host of the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast. I get to talk to just some longtime friends, and then I get to talk to new friends, and that is what today is all about. I have got DeAndra'e Woods of Chapman University in the sunny state of California. DeAndra'e, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Now, what's funny about this is the first time we've met. I can't even say in person. We're on video here doing this podcast today. So this is actually a real treat for me to get to know someone new. And that's, I went and looked at your bio. You are track through and through, that's for sure. So this will be a lot of fun. Looking through your bio, DeAndra'e, doing my homework on you, I noticed you are a California kid through and through.
Yeah, California born and raised. I do have ties to the Midwest, though. Both of my parents are from Columbus, Ohio. And I grew up a Buckeye fan, a huge Buckeye fan. And my great Uncle Curly competed in track and field for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So.
Is that right? I noticed you said the Ohio State. I was going to ask, are you supposed to say the Buckeyes? I'm not sure what the rule is.
No, just the Ohio State,
What you said your uncle ran track there?
Yeah, Curly McDonald.
Wow, what event?
He was a sprinter. He kind of ranged from the 100 to the 400, and that was, I think, 60s or 70s.
Really? Who do you remember? Like who his coaches would have been back then?
Not sure who the coaches were. I should probably do more research on that. But I know since then we've had over probably 8 of my family members on my mom's side graduate from there. Yeah.
From the Ohio State University.
Yes, sir.
Wow, you are Buckeyes through and through. I said California. Your family is definitely Buckeyes.
Oh yeah, definitely. It when there's games, if there's a football game, then we're watching it somewhere. I was done competing on Saturdays. If I had some free time and there was a football game, I went to the alumni, restaurants or bars, and I watched right next to all the alumni. Yeah.
Now, before we hit the record button today, you told me a little secret. So you live in California, but what is all over your walls and frames and such?
Oh man, I got Buckeyes everywhere. Helmets. I have the Buckeye nuts in little compartments. There's one in my office desk. Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I was at the Big House this past November to see the big game.
Dude, and we know what the big game is, and that has not been that big of a game, though, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Imagine me with a bunch of Scarlet, and I'm in the stands, and I'm sitting, I got a student ticket, so I got a good deal, right? I'm sitting with my friends, and all the students are yelling at me. I'm getting all sorts of words, but it was all good.
DeAndra'e, and I know we just met, but there is a fine line between bravery and stupidity, right?
Yeah, okay. I take chances.
Now, we're going to see one day what kind of Buckeye fan you are. So your fandom for Ohio State rivals my fandom for my alma mater, Troy University. And you saw my son today and during our pre-interview. His name is Troy Cunningham.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
I want to see a DeAndra'e Buckeyes Woods Jr. one day.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, you gotta get mom on board. I had to sell this one to mom to get him to be named Troy. But enough about me. So DeAndra'e, take me back. You're a California kid through and through. You went to school in California at Cal State-Fullerton, have coached at several places, but you actually have run track for like a long time. For a young guy, you've been doing track for a long time. When did you start track and field?
Yeah, I would call myself a track baby. I ran for the MLK Blazers in San Diego, California. Head coach was Coach Adam Henderson. That's actually Monique Henderson's father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Coach Henderson started a club track team in the early 90s, and I think in the late 80s before I was born. And my brother joined the team. Family friends, the church friends joined the team, and it just became a family affair. And as a young kid, I grew up watching my brother and Monique and Desiree Linden and a few other people on that team. They're a couple years older than me, between like 3 to 6 years. But I grew up watching all of them compete, and they couldn't keep me from it.
When you started at around 5 years old on that club?
Yeah, around 4 or 5. There we would get to some track meets. And funny thing, I think one of my first meets I ever ran at in a tiny tots race was at Mount Sac. And
Oh, wow.
the other day I was visiting Coach Kamaka, and I saw the lines be put on the track, the brand new lines. So that was a little bittersweet, and that was kind of an awesome moment. But yeah, I started young, 4 or 5 years old, just doing the 400 or the relay and things of that nature. And we took it to a whole nother level. I remember coming up to LA to a few meets, and I remember leaving the certain club meets, LA Jets meets, stuff like that, and the state meet would be going on at Cerritos. And I remember sitting in the stands watching, Marion Jones, Obi Moore, Ika Kinwa, Monique Henderson, and Allison Felix, and everybody else compete at the high level. So that sparked me big time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Obia Moore. I grew up in Alabama, pre-internet days, and but Obia Moore was such a legacy. I don't even know how you call, bigger than life who he was in high school, that even me as a middle of nowhere Alabama track kid, I knew the LA Jets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. What an awesome time for track and field in California, with, like you said, with Marion and Obia and all those guys. Were those kind of like your idols growing up, like especially with Monique there, right? I mean.
Oh yeah. Well, I was in a very special place. So my brother and his close friends were probably a year or two older than Monique. Obi Moore was probably a year or two older than my brother. And so I got a chance to be at the state meet and at youth track meets, watching them all the way until they went on. And then when I competed, Bryshawn Nellum and Joey Hughes were all the same age. And so you look at Marion Jones, when she used to get in the blocks and she'd relax her neck and put her hands down, I mimicked getting in the blocks like that. When I ran the 200, I always wanted to hawk people down like Obi Moore and get out of the blocks really hard. I didn't run the 400 that much, but I always dreamed of hawking somebody down in the 4x4 like Monique or Obi. That's just, I remember, I think 95 or 96 state games when Obi gets the baton in like second place by like 50, 60 meters, and he hawks that guy down. Yeah, I was 5 or 6, but I still remember those days.
Wow. First of all, thanks for making me feel old, because I graduated high school in 94. So thanks a lot. I appreciate that you were, 4 or 5 years old then. Thank you. We're going to have a very short interview today. I'm done with this guy. He's already calling me old here. But it was real special. And it was, you're at such an impressionable age to see those guys, they were kids themselves actually compete. You could kind of see yourself like, well, wait a minute. I'm going to be that age one day. Maybe I could do that. And you were in such a unique situation there with the MLK Blasters that, you had Monique there, and I'm sure they had other great athletes that you almost got to practice with on a daily basis, I'm sure.
Yeah, watching, oh man, it's so hard to describe it, because watching practice every day, seeing competition like that as a little kid. And I was actually, at one point, I wasn't old enough, so I'm watching with my mom in the stands. And I'm like, when is it my turn to be able to practice? And I remember in our apartment complex, we lived next to some of our teammates. And so their younger siblings or our friends, we would line people up, and I would make us do relays around the apartment complex. And we would have mandatory races. I'm like, okay, everybody get out of their house. We're going to start running. And we not only did we play soccer in the middle of the street, but we for sure ran around those apartment complexes.
Dude, that is awesome. I love that. Because I can picture that. That is so awesome. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about doing track and field at such a young age, and high level track, meaning, Monique Henderson's dad as your coach, and went through high school and ran in college and now a coach. There's a lot of times people have this, I don't even want to call it a misconception. There's this thought that kids who start specializing in a sport at such a young age, and you were at an extremely young age, not middle school, we're talking about 5 years old, but you have been able to keep that passion and drive and desire all the way through as a college athlete and now as a college track and field coach. Did you ever get a feeling that track wasn't for you, or or was it always, you know what, thank God I found track because track found me?
That's a great question. I think I hit about fifth or sixth grade, and my sister was a softball player. And other than me playing football, I was like, you know what, I really want to try baseball out. And so I competed in our local little league for 2 years. I enjoyed myself. I really didn't enjoy the daddy ball. And unfortunately, during that time, like you said, being a young child and being impressed with what was going on, it just kind of threw me off a little bit that, you know, so-and-so's dad can throw, 20 soft tosses to him, but I get 5. And they knew way more about the game than I did. And I was like, you know what? I know a sport that I'm really, really good at. And so I'm going to make my way back to that sport. And so 8th grade year, I hopped back into track and field. And I think that break was really good for me. Good for me mentally, maybe not as physically, because that's when people really started to excel that are the same age as me. But when I got to high school, my mindset going into track practice was completely different. I went to a school where Coach Charles Tyler, who was on the San Diego State men's team before they cut it. Our head coach was Gary Stathis, who was the head coach of the men's team at San Diego State before they cut it. His wife, Carrie Stathis, which her maiden name was McLaughlin, she's in their Hall of Fame. She was on the same team as LaToya Sheffield at San Diego. Rodney Van was the jumps coach at our school. So the excitement I had to get back into track and field wholeheartedly in high school took us to a totally different level, me individually, and then my team. My school was a small school. Nobody really knew about us on the track and field side of things. And we had an amazing success in those 4 years. And so I think that extra break that I took opened up a lot for me when it came to competing at the next level.
When you were contemplating, hey, I see baseball, which is the same season, right? So I don't know of anybody who can do both. I don't know of any coach that would allow to do both. Did you, when you told either your parents or even your teammates, hey, I'm gonna go do baseball this season, did you get any kind of pushback from that? Was anybody trying to talk you out of it, or was it more like, hey, go explore and see if you come back?
Yeah, like I think when 6th grade hit and I made that decision, it was a little hard for me because that's when we had a lot of new kids join the club team. Some of them were naturally taller than me or quicker than me. And so they were on the relay teams and they got a chance to have all that limelight. And I was like, that's great. They can have that. And when I made the decision to head to baseball for a year or two, people were kind of like, what are you doing? And in my neighborhood, not a lot of African-Americans played baseball. And so I tried it out. I'm like, I'm going to try this out. This seems really fun. And I think my decision to go back to track was a little different. And for some people, because they're like, well, hold on, like you haven't run in a couple of years. And I look back at videos and I'm like, wow, I could tell I didn't run for 2 years. But there was a little bit of pushback from friends, but family members were so supportive and they just wanted me to have fun. My parents were all about giving us the opportunities to do the best we can and whatever we wanted to do. And they were going to do the best they can to make sure we had all the opportunities that we wanted. So,
well, that's got to be key, right? I mean, it's one thing, and certainly at that age, you're impressionable with your friends and your peers. However, you've lived a much longer time with your parents at that point. So to have their support had to make things feel a little bit more like, okay, they've got my back no matter what decision I make, good or bad, or change my mind, whatever.
Oh, yeah. And then, sophomore year, I decided, hey, I got back into football freshman and sophomore year in high school. And, at the end of sophomore year football season, I was like, you know what, guys, we were on the team bus in JV football. And I was like, hey, this football thing's fun, but I think I'm going to focus on track now. And, I got pushback. Some friends were like, I support you. Some friends were like, that's crazy. Why do you want to do that? And I was like, going back to how I grew up, like, I want to make it to the state meet. And I want to be the best like sprinter that left this school, you know, even though we're a brand new school, I want to do the best I can to get to the state meet, do the best I can to qualify for Junior Olympics more times, stuff like that when I leave high school season. And so I think that's literally when I took off in the sport. So it was exciting.
So how did that work out? Take us through your last couple of years of high school, and what events did you do? And did you ever make that state meet? That's a heck of a state meet to make.
Yeah. My end of my sophomore year, I remember having a decent season, and I decided to keep competing throughout the summer because I wasn't doing spring football or summer football, and qualified for Junior Olympics, and that, I think it used to be called the Home Depot Center at the time. That's where our regionals were.
Oh yeah, Home Depot Center. We know that one. We did all the equipment there way back in the day.
Yep. Cal State-Dominguez Hills, next to that campus, and I ran there sophomore year. And so the next year, I trained on my own in the fall, and I got a chance to kind of dabble into working out with some of the cross-country team here and there to make sure I had some people to push me. After that happened, we get into the spring season, and I go from 23s in the 200, which, like, in the state of California, you're doing okay, but that's not anything to brag about, and running 11 threes and 11 fours. And I went from doing that to going to like 22 high and 11-1, 11 flat. And so I stuck with the sprints. I was a 1-2 runner and ran on both relays. I didn't make the A team on the 4x4 until that season when I focused on track solely.
Interesting.
Yeah. Broke all the school records that year in both relays, 100, 200. I was second place in Division II, San Diego, that year in the 100. We won the 4x1 for Division II in San Diego. And then our team took second place in the county in Division II. And we won our league for the first time in school history. And that was an amazing year. But I think what that sparked something in our captains, because a lot of us had a very successful season. My best friend, Adrian Sherrod, went to Chico State. We're the same age, and he won the 3,200 that year. And so the next year they moved us up to Division I, and our level of intensity grew. And I remember thinking to myself, coaches, like, we had a meeting, me and the team captains and our coaches, and they're like, hey, we just got moved up to Division I, and we're all looking at each other, and Coach Stathis and myself, Coach Tyler, Coach Connolly, we're all looking at each other, and my buddy Adrian, and we're like, well, let's win it. Let's win San Diego section, Division I.
Wow.
And people were like, well, hold on. One of my coaches, I remember saying, well, hold on, guys, hold on. That's a big feat. And I was like, hey, if you can win in San Diego section, we'll put a stamp in San Diego that we're a good track team. And we looked at it and we're like, how can we make this work? And we came back that next season on fire. We won the San Diego section 4x1, third place in the 4x4. My buddy David Clare ran at UCLA. He won the 300 hurdles. My buddy Adrian won the 32. I had a buddy that won the pole vault that year. We had people that scored everywhere. And that feeling was amazing to be a small school.
Wow.
San Diego section Division I, and I had an opportunity to go to state. I didn't go an individual race because I was nursing some injuries throughout the school year and then got back. But to run that first leg and put us in first place in 4x1, and we go all the way and we make it to the state meet, end up being state finalists. That was an amazing feeling. And that was actually the last year the state meet was in Cerritos. And so it felt good to me because that's the first state meet I ever went to, it's at Cerritos. You know, little, like 13 years before that, I'm sitting in the stands as a little kid running around asking someone to give me a baton.
Yeah, I love that. You know, California, anybody, every state is different, but if you make your state meet, that's special. No, because that's the culmination, right? When you make the California and Texas state meets, man, oh my goodness, that's a whole. There's so many really, really good athletes that don't even make the California state meet. I mean, that's how competitive it is to get there.
And I tell my student athletes all the time, like, hey, like, this is not like you're from a different state, or even the kids that I'm recruiting from California, I tell them, hey, you're from California. Yes, you didn't make the Masters meet in Southern Section, but that does not mean you're not good. And actually, I find myself having to try to motivate them and give them confidence, because it's tough to be in this state, especially in Southern California. It's tough to compete in Southern California. And just like talking to, I think you spoke to my buddy DJ Hicks, and
Yeah.
Texas, and same situation. Like, you can be in a state of Texas and be pretty decent in any other state, or maybe a state champion, but no one gives a dang about you if you're if you're not the guy. And that's how we grew up. So competition is totally different when it comes to us coaching, I'm pretty sure.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, luckily as a coach, you've and you grew up in it, but you realize, like, okay, if they don't make the state meet, they're still recruitable. Like, there's plenty of national champs in the NCAA level that were not California state qualifiers and Texas state qualifiers. That's for sure. I guarantee that.
Oh yeah.
So you parlayed that. I love that your team came together and it really took that challenge of, we're moving up to the Division I level. Okay, well, let's go win it. Not, you could have, there's two forks in the road there. You could have said, oh my gosh, we're moving to the harder division. Well, let's just do our best and, see what happens. You guys took that challenge. I love that. And so
I think what's exciting about that too is I think that's when I found out I was going to get into some side of coaching. Is because me and my team captains, my coaches, my high school coaches have told me all the time, and they still tell me now, that we did less coaching that year than we've ever done in our coaching careers. They're like, you guys managed your team, you policed your team, and you guys took care of business.
Now, that's interesting. I'm always fascinated when the coaching bug steps into an athlete's purview as for a profession. Most of the time, it seems to be in the college level as they're working through their major. You started that junior, sophomore, junior year of starting to think like, oh, maybe I could do this as well.
Yeah, I think it really hit me. My brother was coached by my high school sprints coach, Coach Tyler, and my brother helped coach us too when I was at Steel Canyon High School. But Coach Tyler stood up at our banquet. And first of all, I've never seen Coach Tyler get choked up in my life. And he started talking about this guy, and like he starts getting choked up, and he mentions my name, and I'm like, holy crap, let's talk about me, And before he announced my name, he said, this kid, if he were not running college and wanted to coach at a high school right now, I would be afraid to coach against him.
Oh, wow. That had to make you feel good.
Yeah, and that's because I knew I wanted to major in kinesiology. I knew I wanted to go into private training, strength conditioning or something. But that's when it hit me like, wow, like the respect that the coach that I look up to has said that about me. And I think it gave me more confidence and more passion about exactly what I love and what I'm doing now.
I tell you, that is a great example of the power, the positive power of a coach's speak, his or her talk to athletes, and how that coach specifically uplifted you and your ability to really be a mature person, right? I mean, you're talking about a 16, 17-year-old kid at that point. So to say that, hey, if this kid went to go coach at a rival high school, I'd be scared of them. Like, that really boosted you up and really maybe was a catalyst into you using that future kinesiology degree to do coaching, and not a million other things that you could do with that degree. Oh
yeah, and I think it was a spark. I look back now, we have all this time during all this, but the Last Dance, right? The Last Dance episodes with what Michael Jordan's been going on, and I talk to some of my old teammates all the time, and they're like, you were an ass sometimes at practice. And they would be like, you would finish your reps and run over there because the jumpers are doing intervals. You're yelling at them that they need to run faster and like all sorts of stuff. And I think back now, and like my friends keep telling us, yes, you guys were hard on us, but we'll never, ever want to go back and change our memories, because the memory that we have of running down on that field to accept that championship trophy is something that nobody wants to ever forget, right? I think we walked around campus for the next 3 weeks calling each other champs. Every guy that was on that team is like, hey, what's up, champ? What's up, champ? I see you, champ. hey, champ, you know? So like, it was something special for sure.
As much as I want to call you a dork for that, that is awesome though. You deserved it though. So that's great, man. Good for you guys. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So let's do what you do best. Let's speed up here a little bit. So you parlayed that success in high school on as a 100 and 200 meter athlete into college. You run at Cal State-Fullerton, correct?
Yeah, California State University, Fullerton, and had a great opportunity to be coached by Brandit Copper, now known as Brandit Campbell.
Randy Copper, the hurdler from University of Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I used to see her run when I coached at Troy. She ran at Alabama. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So Brandit, oh man, Coach, I know she's Mrs. Campbell now, but I still call her Coach Copper. Coach Copper was a force to be reckoned with. I had so much fun being coach underneath her and her event group. She took on so much as a young coach. She was coaching sprints, hurdles, and almost every jump at the Division I level. But that was fun. I was a recruit walk on. I walked on. I qualified for conference, and my first year I was on the 18 4x1 and 4x4. And I'm Mike. We just met. I'm 5'4", and at the time I was probably 5'4", like 130 pounds. So I was like, I just made the 4x4 at the D1. Let's go. I was like, D1 level. All right, coach. Whatever you need, I got you. You know. So,
I think we all just got an understanding of why sophomore year football was over.
yeah. Oh.
5'4",
Oh
130.
my
You're
gosh.
like, you know what? Let me just go back to that oval. Let me go run.
Yeah, and after a while for football, I was like, you know what? You guys are playing maybe 25 or 30 of the 50 people on the roster. Instead of me getting in the last quarter, how about me get faster and me compete? So I'll still support you guys,
That's
but
right.
I don't need to pad up. It's cool.
Oh man. Well, that's
Oh yeah.
awesome that you had that success. And I love that Brandon, you said she was a force as a coach. Let me tell you, I got to see her run several times. She was a force on that track, man. There was no doubt when she stepped into the lane for the hurdles. Boy, if she wasn't going to win, you were going to have to do something special to beat her. She was
Yeah.
awesome. That's so cool.
I
I love
think
that.
I think we had a really good relationship because of kind of like the dog that I had and the competitive nature. I was on the smaller side, and it's D1, and for me, I probably it was an average or a little bit below, above average in conference. But I told her, like, whatever you need me to do, you will get 100%, and I will fight someone for my job on those relays. So I told her, like, before anybody thinks that 4x1 spot is theirs, if I have to challenge them at practice, I will.
Boy, every coach and yourself included, that's sometimes that's all they ask for. Like, man, just fight for it. Talent is what is in there. Let me coach, but give a crap about what you're doing. Let me help you and have that fighting spirit. That's so awesome. What
Yeah.
was the rest of college like for you? Were you majored in kinesiology? Were you still in the mindset of becoming a college track coach, or were there other things that were sparking your interest in college?
Yeah, well, growing up, my brother was a kinesiology major. He's 8 years older than me, and when he graduated high school, I was graduating in fifth grade, and so that's when I decided kinesiology. Right, that's what I want to go into. And I got older, and the goal was strength and conditioning or personal training. And personal training kind of stuck out to me more. I was like, I'm gonna be Kobe Bryant's wife's trainer. I'm gonna train all the wives in LA and just make a crap ton of money and drive to each house. You know, that make some sweet money.
That's LA living right there.
Yeah, and live right outside of LA, but in LA and come visit. That's what I'm gonna do. We were in the weight room once, and during weightlifting session, and a track and field alum who was a weightlifting strength coach at Cal State-Fullerton at the time, Nick Longo. He was like, "Hey, DeAndra'e, I see that you're helping your teammates." He said, "Are you trying to go into coaching, like strength coaching?" And I told him, actually, I'm moving my emphasis from fitness to strength and conditioning because that kind of does stick out to me. And so that was probably sophomore, junior year in college, but overall collegiate track and field went well. I built amazing relationships with my teammates. And by no means were we, a star team. We were definitely middle to bottom of the pack in our conference, but I'm so proud and happy to see my alma mater do what they're doing now with fully funded program, getting money to come in, and now they're starting to put their name on the map in the West Coast. But
Yeah, we love to see growth. That is good. I'm glad you said that. That's awesome.
oh yeah, as a proud alum, and then when I majored in Kines, I had amazing professors. Tracy Statler, who is in sports psychology, she used to work with USA Track and Field.
Oh yeah,
Andrea Becker, who's with the men's volleyball USA team, was one of my professors, and I had some amazing professors.
Yeah.
My time at Cal State-Fullerton was amazing. Holistically, I would say I truly enjoyed my college experience.
It sounds like you definitely found the right school for you.
Yeah. And then I think when I got to the end of my athletic career, I decided to stay one more year. So I spread out my units a little bit, stuck it out for one more year, and a couple of my buddies played baseball at Cal State-Fullerton. And I thought to myself, like, I'm going to help Coach Copper and volunteer with the team, but then also I need an internship. And so I reached out to Coach Vanderhook at Cal State-Fullerton. He was just finishing his first year as the head coach. And I reached out to him and said, hey, first of all, I said, hey, can I try out for the team? And I don't know if anybody that's listening to this knows Cal State-Fullerton baseball, but the prestige of Cal State-Fullerton baseball is ridiculous. And he actually gave it a thought, Mike. He gave it a thought, and he did some compliance research on could this happen. And I eventually got on scholarship my fourth year. And so if I were to try out for baseball my fifth year, I would have to drop that scholarship because he only had a certain amount of scholarships for his program. But then in that email, I also put, can I intern this, and this? I'd love to help out. And he goes, how about you come to my office in a couple of days and we sit down and have a conversation? He said, because I really want to talk to you about maybe doing our speed and agility. And that's when my mind shifted from track and field to strength and conditioning fully. That's when I was like, oh, this is sweet.
I love that you contemplated joining the team. I tell you, it goes with your bulldog, just, go full speed attitude. I really do like that. It was a little foolhardy maybe because if you don't know Cal State-Fullerton baseball, let me tell you, it's one of the top programs year in and year out. Perennial College World Series type of team without the big name, without being the University of Miami and Mississippi State and some of these other schools that are just amazing baseball schools, Texas being one of them, of course. So I love that you said, you know what? You're good. That's great. Let me try. Let's see what I can do to improve. I think Coach quickly realized, like, though, he is a speed guy, and speed's important in baseball. Maybe that's how he can contribute. Let's do that. So you worked with the Cal State-Fullerton baseball team as their strength and conditioning coach, or how'd that come out?
Yeah, so we sat down and we spoke. Mind you, take this back. I'm going to go back a little bit. When he emailed me back, I don't think I slept well the next 2 or 3 days. So I called all my buddies that were on the team currently. They're all coaching now, which is really cool. But I called them. I went to their houses, and I asked them what they used to do for conditioning, warm-ups, and how can I change this stuff, right? And I sat down with a binder full of ideas. And I walked into his office, and it's Coach Vanderhook sitting at his desk. It's Coach Mike Kirby, who I think is at New Mexico State now as the head coach. Coach Chad Baum, who's the head coach at Fullerton Junior College now. Shane Costa, Major League Baseball player. And if I'm not mistaken, Jason Dietrich was there. And Jason's now in one of the Carolina schools as the associate head coach. But they're all behind his desk, and they're looking at the papers, and they're looking. And this is Rick, okay? This is Vanderhook. This is Hookie. Hookie goes, I don't understand any of this shit. He said, but they like it. I like it. Let's do it.
Well, he's got to respect a guy who walks in with a binder. Like, see, I did my homework. He has to respect a guy that doesn't get to that level of coaching in his sport, whether it's track, baseball, what have you, without some level of preparedness and working hard and those kind of things. So he sees you're still a kid at that point.
Yeah.
to me anyway. He sees this kid walk in and you've done your homework. He had to be impressed.
Yeah, it was that day I was kind of on edge. Like, I don't know what he's going to say. He's going to say no. He says yes, and he gets me set up with compliance as a volunteer, as an intern, for strength. And so I was delegated as this conditioning intern, so to speak. And so Isaac Salazar, head strength coach at Cal State-Fullerton, and him set me up to be the intern strength and conditioning coach, mostly in the conditioning side.
Right.
I worked with softball as well while I was there, and any other sport that felt like they would love to utilize my tools. And so if people know about softball, DiDi Kingsbury was the interim head coach at the time. DiDi, her maiden name is Wyman. DiDi Wyman was on the USA Olympic team. She competed at UCLA. And so like those two coaches, they put their hands up and they let a 22-year-old train their team. And
so were you responsible? Did you do their warm-ups and their before or after practice conditioning? What were you actually doing for them?
Yeah, for softball, I just kind of stepped in and did some conditioning. For baseball, I reconstructed their warm-ups, how they warmed up before the game, their conditioning, what they did from basically, because NCAA rules in September or August, the start of the school year, they're only allowed a certain amount of hours. And so literally there was like the first month or two where it was me and Isaac that did everything and the baseball coaches could only watch. And so we did warm-ups, speed and agility, conditioning, plyometric work, quickness, first 3 or 4 steps, 5 yards, 10-yard work, base running work. And man, Mike, I thought I was just doing decent. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing a good job. This is kind of fun, right? And Isaac, the strength coach, did a study or did some testing, and he goes, DeAndra'e, come here. And I came down to his office one day, and he said, I just want to let you know that our team average in vertical jump just went up by 2 inches in 1 month. Average.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I'm still a student. So I'm like, that sounds really good. He goes, no. This is freaking awesome. And he goes, and this is another thing that kind of sparked me. He was humble enough and said, that's all you. You helped with that. And I'm kind of like, well, you're the strength coach, dude. I just kind of changed how they ran and did some warm-ups, and some speed and agility stuff. But that season, we had one of the best seasons ever in Cal State-Fullerton history.
That's saying something.
I think our regular season or all the way through, I think we were like 50-9 or 50-11. We had about 6 to 7 guys get drafted that year. Those guys right now, oh my gosh, Michael Lorenzen, who plays for the Reds, Chad Wallach, who is still in either majors or AAA, Greg Jeffries' son, Jake Jeffries, got drafted that year. I want to say Carlos Lopez, Richard Pedroza, a bunch of those guys got drafted. They're either playing pro in Mexico right now or they're still in the minor leagues or something right now. That freshman class was crazy. So you had Thomas Eshelman, who made his major league debut last June. Justin Garza, a few other guys, and a bunch of those guys are coaching too. So crazy.
Did you talked about like sprint mechanics and plyos and stuff like that. Did you get so far down to like how they come off first base if they're trying to steal second? Did you get down to like real baseball specific acceleration and technique, or was it more just like what you understand from a degree in kinesiology, but also B as a track coach and what acceleration and velocity understanding?
Yeah, no, we dove in all that. So sometimes I sit down with the coaches, and Coach Dietrich was the pitching coach, and so he would ask me some questions, and I would toss out some stuff, some ideas to him. We talked about how to round the turn and keeping your chin down or looking up for the coach, looking in instead of looking everywhere. We talked about our arms and gravity and center of mass, and we talked about how to round and how to be more accurate, how to drive the knees and pick up our feet, maybe high heel recovery. We didn't get that deep, but things of that nature for sure. And that time with that baseball program, Mike, was huge because you mentioned Texas earlier as a powerhouse baseball. Augie Garrido, who used to be the winningest baseball coach, who's the head coach at Texas, used to be the head coach at Cal State-Fullerton. What changed the program at Cal State-Fullerton. And going into, I talked about sports psych earlier, Ken Revisa, who the late great Ken Revisa as well, Augie and him both passed about a year or two ago, but Ken Revisa was my sports psychology professor, and with him in sports psych as an athlete to help me make the transition in college. And he was working with the baseball team as well. So it's kind of crazy how the strength and conditioning experience went for me, because I worked with baseball, but amount of knowledge I learned with those coaches and that atmosphere has helped me take my career to the next level.
So speaking of your career, you had talked about earlier, you had thought about being a personal trainer to the stars, so to speak, right? And that's a really good, I'll tell you what, Kevin Hart's personal trainer makes more than you and I combined by a factor, by the way. So
oh
that
my
was
gosh,
not,
big time.
Yeah, that was not like a crazy, like that doesn't exist. That was a real path you could have taken. It appears you were on that path in a baseball sense at this point. You could have become this speed, agility, quickness guru coach to baseball players who I don't know if you've ever seen their contracts. They make quite a bit of money, right? But instead you veered back into the track world. You went, where'd you go from there?
Oh man. So that freshman class, my first year, had Jake Jeffries, Greg Jeffries' son. So if you're a baseball fan, Greg Jeffries played for the Mets for years. His son, Jake, was on the team. And Greg moved down from the Bay Area to Southern California to partner up with some people in the gym world and private training world. And he taught hitting classes at this gym. And they had a club baseball team, stuff like that. I needed a job after college. And so they called me in. I'll fast forward 6 months because I had a tough issue with a different job. But as I was working retail part-time and that other job didn't work out well, I called Jake's dad, Greg, and I'm like, hey, do you know those owners of that gym really well? Do you think they need another guy? And they brought me in as the sports performance director. So I'm 23 years old and I'm a director of a sports performance gym, 45,000 square foot facility.
Wow.
I got youth classes. I got middle school, high school classes. I got minor league baseball players coming in. I think we had 14 batting cages. I wasn't ahead of that side, but that side was fun. And so I worked with the youth age kids all the way to adult fitness classes. And like you said, I was on a track to really go private training route or strength and conditioning for baseball. And some of the baseball players and I would say multi-sport athletes I trained at that gym are kids that are at Purdue playing football. They're at Oregon State playing baseball. I had a soccer player at Southern Florida. And some of those kids are still doing amazing things now, and they reach out to me and we kind of touch bases too. But while I was doing that job, I was working retail with Adidas, and I'm like, all right, guys, this retail thing's fun. But I had an opportunity to teach part-time at a high school. And living in the private training world, it's not everybody gets the chance to be like Kevin Hart's, personal trainer, where he gets a star and he get like a couple other people and now you're making billions of bucks. I was a young kid and most people that listen to this podcast will probably know Southern California is not somewhere that you want to live and not have the money, right? So I'm working as a director of sports performance at a gym that's privately owned. And I'm trying to find ways for my assistant coaches to still get paid and for the gym not to go under. Because if I work 40 hours a week with the gym and get paid the whole time, then I'm probably working more than what we had coming in at the time. So I started teaching at a high school part-time in the mornings while I was at the gym. Most of my jobs overlap, but got a chance to teach at the high school and I work at the gym. But the gym was an amazing opportunity, and so was teaching. But
did you teach a science class?
I taught sports medicine.
Yeah, okay.
So I started the sports medicine program at the high school. I taught at El Rancho High School in Pico Rivera, and I was a CTE instructor. And I was debating. I was talking to a lot of my mentors and a lot of my friends, and I realized that I really want to go back and get my master's degree. And how do I do that and not completely be broke? And
well, yeah, tell you what, if you ever solve that, you could write a lot of books and make a lot of money that way. That's a grand question right there.
Well, I'm ready to write a book.
Oh, here we go. Let's listen.
I decided to leave the gym after those 3 years. And while I was still at the gym, I was still working with the baseball team on and off and strength and conditioning at Cal State-Fullerton. But private sector of training, money is driven. Like money drives the gym. And I don't coach for the money. I coach because I really love it and I want to make people better. And so I'm like, I got to get back into the college setting. Like there's just some way. And I applied to GA positions all across the nation for strength and conditioning. And I just didn't have as much experience as they wanted, and some people I talk to now that are graduating college, like, Coach Woods, what do I do? They want 5 years of experience. And how do I get that, And so Danny Bowman, who's now at Northwest Nazarene University, he was the second-year head coach at Concordia University in Irvine, California. And they had a GA position open up for sprints. And so I applied for the GA position. He called me for an interview, and I decided to keep the teaching job, but leave the job at the gym to be a graduate assistant track and field coach. And so that's when I made that transition. And
so you went to take classes, but also you kept teaching classes.
Yeah. So oh my God. So I would teach from like 7:55, and depending on the day, it could be to 12 o'clock or to 3 o'clock. And I would drive from LA down probably 30 or 40 miles, which seems normal, right? To like you, but normal 30, 40 miles out here in Southern California, that's about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour drive. And so
let me tell you, if you haven't been to California or live in California, on the outside, all of us non-Californians, we see the Saturday Night Live skits about driving the 5 and the 405 and all that. And it's like, yeah, it's not as bad as they say. Have you seen Chicago traffic? Have you seen New York City traffic? Let me tell you what, all those jokes are real. California traffic is no joke. When you said 30 miles, I was like, oh man, that's a good 3 hours sometimes, depending on, it always depends on the day. I learned that from Californians. It all depends on the day. But man, you were doing that on a near daily basis or daily basis?
Daily. Every day I would finish teaching and I would press GPS to ask how fast it was going to take me to get to campus. And so I'm so grateful for being an assistant coach underneath Danny, because Coach Bowman allowed me to still teach, because I was the only graduate assistant from Southern California. And I was like, this is my source of income. And like, this is a full-time position, like I can't live out here with nothing, And so he worked it out where at my second year, I moved on campus and they actually took care of my housing as a student.
Huge.
So I remember waking up at 4:45 or 5 a.m. to get on the road by 6 to make it to teach by 7:50, teach. And after I taught, I would hop back on the freeway, text him and letting him know if I was going to be late before I got on the freeway, get on the freeway and just eat lunch and pray that I made it on time. I would get down, I would run out of my car, switch shirts from the high school shirt to the college shirt, and then coach them during practice. But I coached sprints, relays, and I was kind of helping out with fundraising, community relations there for those 2 years. And to make that switch and get back into athletics was amazing to me. And I tried to go strength conditioning route, but the minor league level was to the point where, like, you're not going to make that much money in the minors. At the time, gyms were fun. And then I wanted a GA position, but they all want you to have football experience. And I don't know, most people don't realize this, but most universities in California don't have football. So, I'm at Cal State-Fullerton. We have a football team when I was an intern. So I was like, how do I get that experience if I don't have them next to me? So when I got the opportunity to be with Danny at Concordia, I ran with it because I missed the sport of track and field at the time. I started in 2015. So I was 3 years kind of removed from competing. And I was like, let's get back into this and let's have some fun with this.
That's interesting. What a story of just perseverance and dogged determination, doing those drives on a daily basis, eating lunch while you're in the car, switching shirts as you're going to the track. I mean, that is, boy, you really wanted this. This was something that meant something to you.
Yeah. And I think about it this way, Mike, you probably remember this too. Like, I was in college and I had a lot of friends that majored in something. And after a year or two when school was over and things got tough, they just let it go and went for something else. And when I first graduated, I applied to sales jobs. I applied to all sorts of different things. And I'm struggling during this quarantine looking at my computer screen every day. And I can't even imagine if I would have done that in sales, because I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I retook classes in college. I wasn't the smartest kid. I was a college student, me and my brother and my sister, and I had to retake some classes. And when I graduated, I told myself, that is what I want to do. I want to go into school to be in kinesiology, and I want to make sure my career is in kinesiology, and nothing will stop me from that. And I think calling a bunch of mentors and older coaches, and they said, you just got to have a grind and put your head down and get after it if that's what you really want. And those 2 years really tested me too, for sure, because I was still getting my master's at the same time.
Yeah. What did you end up getting your master's in? What were you working towards?
Yeah. So my master's was in coaching and athletic administration. And this kind of ties us in. Coach Copper, Brandit, and I, she got her master's while I was her student athlete at Concordia in the online program in coaching and athletic administration. And so that kind of sparked me too. And when I saw that position was open, I was like, I can get that master's, and I will for sure be calling her for help.
Isn't that interesting, the people that come into your lives? And, you met her maybe the first time and she told you she was getting this master's, and you kind of maybe just didn't even think like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then as the opportunity came about to actually do it, you're like, oh yeah, that's what she was doing. Yeah, I could do this too. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I think too, just the exposure to just hearing it and being like, oh, I didn't know about that. So let me look into that. Yeah.
That's interesting. I love how that, again, how it just all kind of ties in together there. And maybe it was putting little seeds in your head back then that grew to where you got a master's in that. That's really awesome. So you did 2 years of this driving and masters and teaching to get the master's in administration, athletic administration.
Yep. Athletic coaching and athletic administration.
Coaching and athletic administration. And was the thought, because it's coaching and athletic administration, was the thought always still coaching, or was there anything in the back of your head saying, I could maybe be an administrator, or was it more of just that type of education would help you as a college track coach?
Actually, I thought to myself, and I realized, hey, I'm already coaching track. So I don't want this, and my bachelor's was in strength and conditioning, exercise science. So I want my master's to be kind of a mixture of coaching and athletic administration. And so I took some sports psych classes, some strength and conditioning classes, but then most of my core classes were based off of fundraising, budgeting, administrative stuff, legal issues in sports, stuff like that. And so I wanted to be more well-rounded, just in case if I wanted to go a different route. Yeah.
What did you end up doing after you received your master's? Where was your first job? Was it right out of master's, or was there a lag time in between that?
Yeah. So, oh man, I kind of jumped a little bit. Coach Copper branded my January of my senior season. She told me about the USA track and field coaching education that was going on at OCC, Orange Coast College. So I got my level 1 USA track and field level 1 there right before.
Do you remember who your teachers were?
Jeremy. Jeremy was one of my teachers down there. He was at the Olympic Training Center now, coaching the jumps.
Dude, you had the best one. That guy's awesome. I love him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And actually, another San Diego track and field girl, he was coaching. It was Akiba McKinney. And so she was training with him, and my brother knew her because they're the same age. And so when I found out he was teaching it, I was like, I could take that. And then Danny set me up with going to Seattle my first year. And I took sprints and hurdles with the USTF CCCA education. And I had Keba, I had Vince, I had all those guys, Boo, I had all those guys in that class. And that just gave me more knowledge to be prepared. And we had some pretty good success at Concordia. But I think that kind of helped me kind of formulate if I was going to be ready to coach at the next level or if I was going to stay at Concordia.
Yeah, I think those coaching education programs, I grew up a coach's ed brat, meaning I did all of them. I got 3 or 4 level 2s and level 1, of course, and actually taught until I'm doing air quotes here, retired from teaching level 1s. I think I probably taught 20 to 30, somewhere in that range, level 1s, teaching either sprints and hurdles or jumps. Training theory was always my favorite. And the guy my mentor for not only coaching, but what I would try to emulate in teaching is Boo Schexnayder. I mean, you don't get any better than that guy. So to hear that you had Vince and Keba, man, what a who's who and the right people to be listening to and how to kind of emulate your coaching style and teaching style.
Yeah, it was great. We, man, actually, it's crazy how all things come together because I got back that next summer from a very successful track and field season. Brandon actually was at Academy of Arts at the time now, and we were in the same conference. And her husband, Coach Campbell, who coached at Fullerton at the same time too. So we got a chance to compete against each other as coaches. But then I took that convention class or the education class. And after I took that course, I came back and Danny was he kind of stepped back a little bit and was like, I need you to kind of show up more in sprints and relays. And I had way more confidence in understanding his terminology and where he was coming from because he was using the same terminology as coaching from there. And I think after that year, we both had a long conversation about next steps. And he said, well, I want to find a way to keep you, but I don't know how much money I'm going to have to. And
therein lies the dilemma of every head coach.
Yeah. And so we, with the names that helped me out and so much, and I applied to probably 50 to 30 jobs, I think 30 to 50 jobs that year. And I told him, I plan on coming back to Concordia, but if I get an offer that's full-time, I got to take it because I'm working 2 jobs. I'm driving, I think I was driving 60 to 70 miles a day. Yeah. So, and I applied to a bunch of jobs, and we're going to tie somebody else in here. I applied to the Chapman job. at Chapman University, Division III. It's literally 10 minutes, 15 minutes from Concordia. And D.D. Kingsbury, who was the softball coach at Cal State-Fullerton, was the SWA and the softball coach at Whittier College in the same conference. And I called D.D. and I said, hey, I'm applying to the Chapman head job, and I wanted to see if you know anybody there. And she texted me the next day and said, do I know anybody? She's like, the athletic directors are having a meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to be on their campus. And
wow.
And that kind of helped kind of gel everything together. And that was an awesome opportunity to have her be able to pour out into them and say, hey, I trust this guy, and you need to hire this guy.
Yeah, cause that's what I was thinking. Because let's be real here. You are just off of getting a master's degree, and you're applying for a head coaching job.
Yeah. Exactly.
What made you think that you were ready? And maybe you weren't. That's a fair answer. What made you think you could step into a head coaching role right off the bat?
Oh, well, like I think about it this way. All my mentors and all my coaches are, other than my parents and my siblings, are my number one fans. And if I need anything, I can call them right now. And so the way I felt is I'm going to apply to this job. And I know if they say, hey, well, you've never done this, I was like, I have the resources that I need to help me get through this. And so I was like, I'm going to stick my neck out and take that chance.
So instead of bravado of, oh yeah, I'm ready, it sounds like it was more of like, okay, I think I can do this. And my confidence really comes from, because even if I don't know the answer, well, my network, but my mentors, the people that I love and trust, they'll have the answers. Like I'll be able to rely on them.
Yep, exactly.
What a fantastic attitude, first of all, DeAndra'e. More and more and more people need to have that attitude. Sometimes we see, and I'm not picking on coaches here, just in the business world and everywhere else, and inside of our own networks, we see people who show up in a room and they want everyone to know that they are the smartest person in the room. I tend to operate a little bit more like you, DeAndra'e. First of all, if I'm the smartest person in the room, we've all got a lot of problems, right?
That's what I said. If I'm the smartest, I'm struggling here. There's a problem.
There's a problem. That's right. That's right. So it's not about how much do I know. It's about how broad is my network. Can I go find, and do I have the humility to go find the answer? And so for you to have that attitude, really, what age are you when you get this head coaching job at Chapman?
That was 2017. I was 27 when I got there.
A 27-year-old to have that attitude, bravo to you. I just know that if we're still doing this podcast in 10 years, we're going to be talking to Coach Woods, the head coach of UCLA, whatever you want to do, to be real honest with you. I just know it. That is such a great, great attitude. I'm really curious, how do you use that attitude in your coaching, or do you?
Oh, no, of course I do. I think just having the people to reach out to for assistance has made me learn that every coach that feels like they know it all should probably hurry up and retire. And Coach Vanderhook has told me all the time, my goal is to be hopefully excellent at one or two things, but I need to have the tools and the other things. Coach Copper, when we were in college, she kept going to coaching conventions and she kept doing coaching educations. And it showed us as athletes that, like, it's okay to be humble enough to know that you don't know it all and you want to get better. And I tell my athletes, there are going to be challenges, and there are things that we can't control, but I will do the best I can as a coach to make sure you don't have to worry about them. You just show up ready to work. And when I interview for the job, we don't have a track. We don't have the best facilities. It's a beautiful campus. We have an amazing campus. But we're in the middle of a residential area. It's kind of like the suburbs, but it's beautiful. There's nowhere to build out. So I told them, we go to a local high school across the street to practice, and if that's more important to you, the facilities and the names and all that, then this may not be it for you. Because I don't have that mindset. Whatever you're going to give me, I'm going to utilize what we have. And that's my goal as a coach, to utilize my resources, my mentors, and everything I got.
You mentioned you use a high school track across the street, but I'm assuming that's not always available, and it's not your track, so maybe you don't have the first choice at time slots. What ways have you had to get creative in training, whether it was preseason training or in the season training, since you don't have that luxury really of a facility that's yours?
Yeah, well, this spring was the first time we actually walked across the street to practice. My first 2 years, we utilized another high school twice a week. My second year, because that was getting there was some maintenance stuff going on. They were redoing the stadium. I actually called Monique Henderson, who's at Golden West College right now as a head coach, and I begged her to let us pay to rent their facility twice a week. So we drove 30 minutes to train at her school twice a week. And the other days, we utilized the football turf. We utilized the swimming pool, the sand volleyball courts. I had one athlete who was a jumper who couldn't make it to those 2 days a week at the track. And so the only days he got on a runway is jump day. And so him and I did some stuff in a basketball gym. He did a lot of backboard touching and pop-ups to touch the backboard. I actually leaned on a lot of coaches that were from the Midwest who have to do this when it snows, when they don't have an indoor facility. So I was definitely being really creative, and to see the improvements that we had in those 2 years was huge to have the facilities.
I started my coaching career coaching high school in Chicago, in the Chicago Catholic League. And let me tell you, shout out to my Chicago coaches out there, because there's not a lot of tracks in Chicago as a big city. There's not a lot of indoor tracks specifically. And so there's a lot of 30-yard, 90-degree turn, 30-yard activities that you work on. And yes, the basketball backboard slaps, that's a prereq if you're going to be a jumper in the Chicago High School League. So with those challenges that you've had, have you had success with athletes, or are you just kind of getting by there at Chapman?
Yeah, well, when I took over my first year, it was very challenging because, mind you, I'm coming into a program that's a little bit more relaxed. Athletes kind of had a little bit more kind of leeway. And Division III is there's not that many Division IIIs in the West Coast. So student athletes that are coming in with I'm going to Division III, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm at a party, I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to go to practice when I want to. And I was like, that's not going to work. And so year one, we had some slight improvements, but there was a very big curve, so to speak, in learning and transitioning to some structure, to my structure. But year two, we had huge improvements. I think we went from in women's 4x4, we went from 420 to 408 in those 2 seasons.
Wow.
Men's 4x4, we went from 339 to 319. The team wasn't that big. We probably had 35 or 40 athletes my second year. But we got to conference, and I want to say about 75 to 80% of those athletes peaked at conference championships.
Bravo, right? Man. That's the way to do it.
And I think it was just because they believed. Like I'm okay. I can read about some stuff, and my coaching staff, we can do the best we can to collaborate. But if they believe in what we're doing, we can really get the job done. If they aren't going to believe, how am I going to help you get better? Because you're pushing back the entire time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, the training probably didn't change year one to year two all that much. Your style and what you believe in sprints or jump training, that base is still there. Your knowledge is still there. And so how you practice was probably pretty similar. What changed, you talked about that belief, and maybe another way of saying that is you had to build a culture, or you had to do a culture change there at Chapman?
Yeah, I definitely had to bring in in what I wanted to bring in culture-wise to our program. And I think it was going to be a little bit drastic for the returners. And the freshmen that I inherited, because I didn't recruit them, they didn't know any other way my first year. And so actually out of the 30 or 40 people that we had on the team when I first got the job, most of them aren't on the team now. And so I've recruited my butt off to get the kids in the freshman class in the next year. I think we had like 25 or 30 kids from that first recruiting class. But just like you said, the culture, I had to shift the culture to be like, we're going to work hard, but we're going to have fun. And if we're going to do this, I need you to saddle up or strap your seatbelts in, and let's do this. If you're not going to do this, you're not going to upset me. I still love you, but this may not work, And I think that our first two recruiting classes really started to kind of like figure out, okay, what if I still want to hop into this, or what if I don't? And I think that's what helped us improve is they were able to see themselves compete well in our conference. And our conference is tough. We got Pomona Pitzer, Claremont Mudd Scripps, we got Redlands, and just those three schools alone. Then you have Laverne, you have Whittier, and so Cal Tech, there's 9 schools. And when I took over, and we're still in the bottom 3 schools, and so to score, I think we scored 3 points or 8 points in conference my first year in track and field. And then we went up to scoring like 25 the next year. And then distance, I'm so excited to have the distance coach that I have and us collaborate. We went from 9th place to 6th and 7th place this past year. So
tell us more about this distance coach.
Yeah. My first year I hired a buddy of mine, and he ran at Cal Poly Pomona. Didn't really work out. He wanted to go, working in the business world and stuff. And I got a chance to hire Baron Maislin. And Baron is a Chico State alum.
Great distance program.
Great distance program under Gary Towns. I love Gary to death. I was
legend,
but I love the guy. And Baron is a Southern California kid. He went to Orange Coast College and won the California Junior College State Meet in the steeplechase. And he went another route, but then ended up at Chico State. And after he took some time volunteering up there, he moved back down. And I found out he moved back down. And I'm like, dude, you got to come be my coach. And I was like, if you trust me, I was like, this job, there's a 90% chance that it's going to be full-time next year. And he was part-time his first year, which was last year, and he became full-time this year. But him and I, as a friendship, right, it's just we're having so much fun bringing in the right athletes. I do the strength and conditioning side, and him and I kind of discuss the distance training, and then he kind of lets me how their bodies are feeling for strength and conditioning, and we collaborate, and we've seen some huge improvements on the cross-country side, and it's been a joy to have him on the staff too. And all staff. So
I want to highlight 2 things that you said there. One is when you were talking about the athletes, when you first got there at Chapman, and you were talking about, hey, I need you to buy in, or see yourself through the door. Basically, those are my words, not yours. But something you said there that I think was really important, I want to make sure we don't skip over, is you said as you were talking to the kids there in that story, hey, I still love you. This just might not be the right place for you. This track and field team, it may be in the science club at Chapman, or intramurals at Chapman, whatever, right? The student, the SAAC or something like that. I really want to make sure we highlight that, because that's important. It's not binary as track coaches, right? It shouldn't be binary that, oh, okay, if you're in track and you believe in me, you're a good person. If you don't, well, you're dead to me. Go do something else. I really wanted to just repeat that statement that you made there. It's like, I still love you, just this isn't the right place. I really, really like that, man. That's important. The second thing I wanted to touch on there, when you talked about the distance coach, tell me his name again. I'm sorry.
Baron Maislin.
Baron, when you were recruiting him to come work for you, and like, hey, 90% chance it could be full time. You said, hey, Baron, if you trust me, come work for me. Let's work. Let's do this together. Again, that word trust, we like to talk about it between coach and athlete, but maybe you can speak on it as a head coach, and I know you're not a rookie head coach, you're a young head coach. Talk to us about that trust in your staff. So between you and Barron, and maybe you have some volunteers or such, what is the role of trust in your staff as coach to coach?
Oh, I think that me having the opportunity of working with the different coaches I've worked with has truly opened my eyes to, like, I need to trust my staff. When I was an intern at Cal State-Fullerton strength and conditioning, and I got a chance to work with baseball and softball and those other teams, those coaches really trusted me. Like, I think I can count maybe on one or two hands how many times I trained those teams and the coaches actually stood there and watched. And that showed me, okay, I have to make sure when I get into a role as a head coach, I need to make sure that not only do I trust my assistants, do they trust me as a head coach to help mentor them in the right direction? And that's something Vince Anderson told me too. This past summer, I talked to him about it, and he said, you have a responsibility now. He's like, I don't care how young you are, you have a responsibility. There's coaches that are looking up to you. Your coaches need to learn from you, and then you need to continue to learn from other coaches too.
What a shock that Vince Anderson says something that's genius and true and authentic. What a shock.
Right. And I think it's been huge since then, and there's been a lot of coaches that have poured into me since I was a very little kid. And so the way I think about this is I want to make sure we're having fun, and Danny Bowman, when I was his assistant coach, he went through a lot of family stuff. And so, with one of his kids being ill, things of that nature. And he had to trust me to take over the sprints program and the relays, and while he was dealing with everything else he needed to deal with. And I told him, hey, whatever you need me to do, I can do it. And I wanted to take a load off of his back to be the best assistant coach that I can be. And when I got the head Chapman, I realized that I want assistants that are going to come in and that are going to work really hard, have fun, but then also, like, I don't have to be over their shoulder every day. And I hired our throws coach for the first time. Our throws coach was a GA with me at Concordia. I hired a new jumps coach. The jumps coach was competing when I was coaching against him, but he was at an NAIA school, and I know his coaches. And so the relationships can just be a little bit easier. And I think we can build upon that. And so, like you said, that's such a huge thing. And then not only if we trust each other, the athletes can see and feel that. And now the athletes can easily buy into what we want and what we're trying to get them to do, because they understand we're on one accord. And it's not a fighting type thing. My ego is not into play. I tell my assistants too, like, if your ego is bigger and it's all about you, then this, just like I told the athletes, I'm telling the coaches, if your ego is so big and it's more about you, then this may not work, because I love what I do and it's all about them. And so if they can't hop online with that, then that may not work either in my staff. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the kids, the athletes, because let's not get it twisted. We're talking about 18 to 22-year-old kids, and even down on the high school level, teenager kids. They absolutely can sense when a coaching staff is not in line with each other. Think about and you had actually not a great example. I was going to say, think about when you were in high school, but you had a really good coaching staff. So maybe
amazing.
Not there. Yeah, right. Yeah. So you don't have that experience, but I know someone listening right now is like, oh yeah, when I was on my high school team or my college team, I could tell the head coach and the throws coach clash. And that destroys the culture and trust. The culture can't be built when the leaders, the coaching staff, are not lock in step with each other. So like I said, don't think just because they're young, they're 18, 19, 20 years old, they can't sense it. Heck, they may sense it better at that age than when we become, well, it's hard to call you an old fogey, man. You're such a young kid. But when you become old like us, it's, we tend to skip past that stuff. So love that trust, that what you're working to impart on your athletes, what you imparted as an assistant coach to your head coach, you're now working with your staff that way.
Yeah. And as well as I know, being on a smaller program, I don't have a lot of staff members that are full-time. You know, like I listened to your podcast with Coach Judd, and he talked about having Arnie and all those people on his staff. And I listened to other coaches all the time, and I talk to the coaches, and I'm like, man, you got 5 full-time coaches? You got 3 full-time coaches? Like, I would love to have that. But the volunteers that I have, some of them used to be my teammates, or they grew up around me, or they grew up around the sport, assistant coaches. And I teach a class, and I get some of the kids from my class and make them interns. And so, like, I'm finding a way to kind of have a full staff and lean on some people, but then also give them a chance to have experience too. And like you said, just building trust with them, and they can trust me too.
So what does it look like? You just finished your 3rd year, a year you'll never forget as a coach, that's for sure. Unfortunately, I wish it was because of all the great things, and there were some great things that happened before the shutdown of the 2020 season. What does the future look like at Chapman for you as the head coach as you continue to grow the program?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm so proud to say that with my assistant coach's help, we've brought in at least 30 athletes every year in the recruiting class. Obviously, admissions loves me and loves our staff. But I think the sky's the limit. My mindset is never going to be in a box. That's how I was as a person. That's how I am as a coach. That's how I was as an athlete. No one is going to put us in a box. And I love my athletic directors. They support me 100%. And actually, they're like, are we putting too much pressure on you? And I'm like, actually, I'm probably going to put more pressure on myself than you're going to put on me, because I want my athletes to be the best that they can be. And whether if that'd be eventually to be able to compete and be the top 2 or 3 in our conference, or compete and be in the top 10 in the nation with the George Foxes and with the Mount Unions and all those juggernauts. And so it's just going to take baby steps. Our team mission this year, and I think I'm going to keep it because we didn't finish the year, but our team mission is brick by brick. And I gave him an example. Will Smith said that him and his dad and his brother had to build a brick wall growing up. And that his dad told him, hey, if you can lay that one brick as perfectly as you can lay it, one at a time, then that wall eventually will be the best brick wall you can build. As the best as you can, because you did it one brick at a time, and each brick you did the best you can, right? And so I tell my team, if brick by brick we piece this thing together, we can make some magnificent things. And I tell them, hey, you are the start and the mix-up of this program. And not only do I want you to have success, but when you look back in 10 years or 5 years, I want you to see how well our program's doing. And I tell them too, I see that in my program when my alma mater, you know, and what they're doing right now. And I'm so proud of what they're doing. I wish I was able to hold up the conference championship when I was in college. We weren't, but I was sitting in the stands the day that they did it for the first time, you know. And I just tell my athletes, it's about those things. It's about building a family, building a community of people you can reach out to for the rest of your life. And I think for our program, if we win championships, great. But the biggest thing for me is giving kids the opportunity, student athletes, I call them kids, but giving student athletes the opportunity to compete in college, giving them a chance to really utilize these tools and build holistic success in their life, in the classroom, on the track, field, course, and in life. I think that's our biggest thing. And obviously, our coaching staff is very competitive. And so we would love to win. But we know for a fact that if we're winning in their lives and in their heart, then eventually everything else will take care of itself.
Dude, you gave me a mic drop moment right there. That's awesome. That's exactly the power of a track and field coach has out there. And you can, much like the Marvel comic books, you can use your power for good or you can use your power for bad. And
there you go.
It's so refreshing. It's so awesome to hear and see your passion being used in positive ways. You're exactly right. You're building a wall. I love that imagery of everything that goes into building the culture of a program, whether it's, full-time coaches, building up that you have, full-time dedicated coaches, recruiting classes, their team GPAs, their place in conference, how many kids you get to nationals, it just builds on that. I love that imagery. I'm going to challenge you to figure out a way to make that imagery into something tangible that they can see and touch, and challenge you to go find a way to start physically building that wall at your program to where the kids can see at the end of season, they get to add the team GPA brick. They get to add the fourth place conference team. And then next year they get to add a second, things like that. So that when you look back a year, 5 years, 10 years on what you're building there at Chapman, you'll be able to physically touch and see those memories that you'll have and will have built with your team and your coaching staff.
Oh yeah. And it's already started. Our men's and women's team, cross country wise, we have the highest GPA in athletics on campus. Men, it is the third time in the last 4 years, and women, it's their first time ever. And so those are some little things. And I'm so grateful for my student athletes, just like my coaches, for trusting and working really hard, because a lot of times, especially Division III athletes, they get to the point where they have a chance to be a student athlete, but they're nervous because they're not sure if they can handle the rigor of academics and athletics. And if anybody can do it, I'm like, you could do it. You're an athlete, and that's one brick, that's something else we're adding to it. So I like that. And I take on the challenge.
Well, you certainly stand on the shoulders of giants, from your club coach, the Hendersons, and them coaching you. Actually, even before that, your uncle running track at the Buckeyes. That's right, the Buckeyes, right? Isn't that how you say it? I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to have Ohio State fans, the Ohio State fans emailing me now. From your parents and raising you, to your high school coaches, your college coaches, your college baseball coaches. I don't get to say that very much in a track and field podcast.
Right.
The educators you had from the Cavas, Vince's, Boo's, you stand on their shoulders, and you are a direct reflection of them because they've imparted into you. And so it's just so awesome to see what you're doing. I'm so humbled that you would reach out to be on the podcast to get to know you better. I can't wait to get back on a plane and travel one day. It's kind of my specialty, is making relationships for Gill Athletics with coaches around the country. So I just cannot wait to get out to your area and get to meet you in person and see what you do on a daily basis. Because it's one thing to talk about it, like visualizing that building the wall. It's another thing to see it, my man. And I cannot wait to see you in action at your conference and national meets. There's no doubt you're going to be a player year after year at those national meets.
Thank you. It's been a huge blessing. When I got the job at Chapman, I told a lot of people that, this wasn't just my job. This is for my family. This is for everybody that's taught me everything that I've done. And so my parents and my family members are my biggest cheerleaders, and they're my biggest fans. And they support me wherever I go, and same with all my mentors and coaches. Like you said, the platform that they have built for me is amazing, and I'm ready to take on the pressure like I have been, and my shoulders are strong enough to carry it.
Well, you have earned another fan, sir, in me. I am a DeAndra'e Woods fan, and no doubt many people listening to this who don't know you as well, they're on your side. We're all cheering for you. So thank you again so much for joining us today on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. This is the reason why we named it Connections. It is about connecting people, specifically track and field people, track and field coaches, together. And so just so stoked to be able to learn more about you and your story. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And thank you for what you're doing for our career. I know there's a lot of coaches that are listening in. So I got buddies that are like, I'm loving this information, and I am too. I'm learning a lot. So thank you for what you're doing.
Awesome. You're very, very welcome. Appreciate that sentiment. Thanks a lot, man, and have a great day.
You too.